everybody, and welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios. And today we have a Motorola. I've already forgotten the model number. Is it bad? Model 53C7. You can see the 7's just been added onto it. And it says here, for additional pickup, wrap antenna around this tongue. I'm guessing that must be the tongue. It doesn't look like a tongue, but I guess that's the creative way they came to determine that. It is a 5-tube set. We have a very, very funny looking chassis, I'm assuming, because they had to make room for the clock here. And it's 5 tubes. We have a 35W4 for the rectifier, 50C5 for the output, and then your typical IF related tubes, 12BE6, 12BA6, and then your triode, which is the 12AT6. Don't know if it works or not. This cord is dry rotting, and as far as tape, as far as era, I don't know, but it's got to be before 1955 because the tuner has no civil defense marking on it. But it seems awful close to being mid-50s, so I'm guessing it's between 1952 to 54, somewhere around there. The clock is working. It is a Telecron movement, which are very robust and tend to work really well. And it's even quiet, so I don't need to do anything to that movement because it's working fine. Now, I want to kind of back up for just a second. I've want to admit that this whole summer long I've been doing a really bad job of keeping up with episodes. This summer we had several events at the museum that required just an enormous quantity of radios, anywhere from 50 to 70 radios, and so I've spent most of my time restoring radios without filming it because it takes longer. So I've done at least, I'm guessing, 30 sets in the last few months, and most of them were not filmed. So that's why the behavior and posting on the site, on the YouTube channel, has been really erratic. Then again, not many people watch this, so it's not like people are practically begging me to come up with new episodes, but I do really appreciate those folks like yourselves who are watching. So let's go ahead and turn it on. At least I think that must be turning it on because it's the only thing that says on. Let's see if I see any. It's hard to see through this case if there's anything glowing. I do see something glowing, but I can't really get it in camera. So it is on. And so far, no sound. I don't know which was up or down here. Okay, that's all I need to know. That means the filter caps are indeed bad, and they need to be replaced. So right off the bat, the set's not going to work. It needs to be worked on. That is not at all uncommon. It's extremely common for these sets to have bad filter caps because it's a soft component filled with a dielectric paste, and that paste dries out. So with that said, let's take the back off. I'm assuming we're going to see exactly what I expected to see, which is this layout. The question is, does it unplug, or am I going to have to bring the clock out? Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're not. Well, here is the back, and it is indeed an unusual chassis design. Here's our additional outlet. This became really popular. You see this a lot in the 50s. And thankfully, everything's really easy to detach here. We even have a little plug for the clock so I can pull the chassis out without having to cut wires or pull the clock. This also has this really unusual clock. Do you see, or not clock, but speaker. You see this? I've seen these before. It's where I believe the speaker coil is inside the cone. But nevertheless, I believe, I'm not sure if the speaker comes out with the chassis or not, but we'll find out. It looks like there's just these two screws that hold it in. So we'll pull that and see if the whole thing will come out with the speaker or not. All right, so we have the chassis pulled and it looks like the speaker comes out. I really hope that speaker isn't rubbing, because if it is, good luck. I'm not going to be able to find a replacement for that. That's a really funny design. Look how skinny that is. And it happens to be, this side happens to be where the electrolytic is. And there are two different values inside. I know, because this is the black wire, that's your common ground, and then this side is our red and green, and that's our positives, and it says 50 and 30 microfarads, red and green. And I have a whole bunch of 47 microfarad capacitors, which is what I'm going to use for both, because generally speaking, if you go at or greater the capacitance level and at or greater the voltage, then you're good. Just don't go crazy. If you go too crazy, then you might risk having a problem where you're going to hit the rectifier a little hard. And if you're really concerned about that, honestly, the rectifiers in these are maybe $1. They're cheap and they last forever, for years. I'm looking to see if also this is a floating chassis set, which it is, because you see this cap right here, this guy, that's going to chassis ground, which is here. So that means that the other side of the AC line, because that's how these work without a transformer, is that one side of the AC goes through all the filaments on the tubes, and the other side goes... Well, actually, I take that back. This is the extreme end of the filament string, and it's going through this capacitor to lower the amount of current that could possibly get to you. And that's important, because if it was just one of the filament going to chassis ground, that would be a true hot chassis, which means if you were to touch the chassis and ground and it were a hot chassis, you'd get everything that could potentially come out of your outlet to you, versus this, which is going to diminish it. But this is also a huge size. This is a 0.5 rated capacitor. It's a tenth of a microfarad plus a little bit of it more. And that's roughly, a good 10 times more than what we really want that to be. We're going to start off instead with a 0.01 rated cap, and it's going to be a different kind of capacitor. It's going to be an X2Y2 across the line, sorry. Other than that, there's not much to replace. There's these two, and then there's this guy, this Bumblebee, and that is a 0.047 rated cap. You read these, there's little codes online that you can see that show you what value it is. I just know from memory that that's what that is. This is 475 or 47,000 picofarads, which equals 0.047 microfarads. So what I'm going to do is yank this old capacitor out. It's just held in there with these little friction clip here. And boy, is it close. We've got these two positives coming directly off of the rectifier, probably because of mounting convenience, and then the common negative is here, where that Bumblebee cap is going. It's going to be a little tight, but luckily the new capacitors I'm going to replace this big one with are a lot smaller. Never worked on this chassis before. It's very interesting. Okay, so I decided to reuse the old holder for the capacitors, and I'll find a better way to secure that later. I'm just concerned because, I'll be honest, I found the old classic ball of cotton that was stuffed here, which makes me think that the speaker's rattling. There could be a reason why they didn't use this speaker very long. Maybe it had a high failure rate, but I want to test it out to see if it's going to make a horrible noise, because if it does, I'm not sure how much longer I can continue on this set, because the speaker is fairly well purposefully integrated into the chassis, and due to its very low profile design, there's probably not room. Anyway, let me plug it up, see if it makes any noise, and if it does, how bad is it? Moment of truth, here we go.
He and his people can breathe. The large underground reservoir of liquid water is located in tiny cracks and pores in rock in the Martian crust. And for more, we are joined live.
A little personal for me, but also it matters because this guy...
I'm Esther Dillard.
Y donde dice, está hablando que race 5, not haphazardly thrown.
Around the world, read those good news stories in this week's Angelus magazine.
DJ 做了这么多年，其实也蛮少有机会能够听到。
Seems like it's pretty happy. I'm not sure if the cotton ball maybe pressed up against it long enough to correct whatever problem it had, or maybe someone just I wanted it to sound different. I don't know. Maybe it was by their bedside and they didn't want something so loud. I don't know. But it seems like it's working really well. That makes me go to my next consideration, which is whether or not I should paint this radio. The reason I'm saying that because it's this boring white color, and from my experience when we take these to shows, a lot of people are like turned off if it's... Why can I not get that to come loose? This is unplugged, by the way, so I'm not going to electrocute the crap out of myself. All right, there we go. The question is, how hard is it to take apart? Because we've got this screen mesh that needs to come off, and the clock needs to come out. And how hard is that going to be? It looks like the clock comes out via the front. Interesting. You know what? I've never seen anything like this. This is... I think it's Bakelite. It seems like it's got that density to it, and it's painted, which would also make me think it's Bakelite. But it looks like I could get this mesh off pretty easily, and the clock just pushes out the front. And what I would need to do is probably take the front off, which is probably just clipped in, take the knobs off. I don't know if I need to take the hands off, but we'll find out. Yeah, I want to paint this. Excuse me. That's another thing you probably guys didn't miss. My gaseous outbursts. But yeah. Alright, let me take this apart. Well, sure enough, that clock just comes out in one big piece. Just take that outer trim off, and that comes out really nicely. And so what I need to do is kind of uncrimp this mesh stuff, and then we'll push that out. And I also need to, well, never mind, this is going to be easy. It looks like this is already coming out. I want to get this little indicator thing out too. It looks like there's no labels on it. The labels are on the back. So that's good. So all this front trim will come off in one piece as well. And how is this gold part held on? That's probably crimped on in some way too. I'm not sure. I think I need to take the take this mesh out first, and I'll see how that's attached. All right, so we got everything removed. Sort of down to the bare cabinet. And meanwhile, I put all the delicate trim over here, and I was very proud. I got this out without putting a single dent in it. If you dent this, screw it. You're never getting that dent out again. So now I just need to choose what color I want. I've got a lot of paint here. Got this watermelon color, this red color, this celery color. I like that celery color. I've got a lot of red radios. What else have I got? I've got gray and orange, coral, yellow, more red, lots of blue colors. You know, if they had more interesting spray paint colors, I would certainly get them, but kind of limited. I don't know about orange. What do we got here? Satin, midnight blue. I got white. Don't want that. That's too blue. Ocean blue. Avocado green. You come out here. Oh. Crap. I really need to clean out my... What is this? What color is this supposed? Tropical... I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a disservice painting them crazy colors, but let me think about it. Well, I decided to go with the celery color. It's kind of understated, and the design of the radio is kind of understated. But anyway, what it is, I got all my old refrigerator and freezer boxes that I keep around so I don't get crap all over my driveway. And I'm going to spray paint it. And I do it outside, and I do it when it's warm. Make sure the air is blowing away from where you're spraying so you don't inhale this stuff because it's not good for you. Either that or wear a respirator, which I probably should be doing, but I'm not, even though I should. And I'm not going to film me painting because I need to concentrate on doing it. But the idea is you don't ever want to stop on the work when you're spraying. You want to make sure you don't want to like do this like because then you'll get runs. So you just want to make even sweeping motions where you don't ever stop on the work. You're just throwing on like little light coats evenly. All right, well, it's hard to film this because it's kind of a light color, but I did get it on very evenly, and there's no runs. And it's real glossy, which is what you want, even though again it's hard to see the shine. Anyway, I've got it up here on this block, so if anything, I find that sometimes sand and stuff around here blows on the ground. I don't want to hit the radio. Of course, if I had a proper spray booth, none of this would happen, but I'm too stubborn in my ways, so I'll just do it this way. Welcome to day 2, working on the Motorola clock radio, and this has been sitting out in the hot sun all day. I want the paint to get good and baked on there from the UV. And today, it's going to be all about restoring the electronics, which there isn't much to restore because it's such a basic design. Be real careful not to damage that speaker. But we've got we've got 3 more capacitors to replace. We've got this guy, that's a Unicon cap that needs to be replaced with a X2Y2 across the line cap. Then the one next to it needs to be replaced, and then this bumblebee cap needs to be replaced. And I want to find a way to more carefully secure these, even though it seems like it's in there pretty good. And I have this one lead soldered to that pin of the tube, so it's got a decent amount of support holding it in. But I want to replace the rest of those and make sure it still works. These other guys, like these ceramic caps, you don't need to worry about that. Those are fine. There's one up here too. Again, don't touch it, it's fine. We know the set already works, so it's just a matter of replacing these 3 components, and then it'll be, from a bare bones basic radio perspective, it'll be restored. But then we're going to add what I always add to a lot of these sets just to make them more usable or useful, is adding a feature where the user could come in and listen to their own music, not just be stuck with what's on the radio, which around here and many other parts of the country is not much. In fact, it seems like even some of the few independent AM radio stations are just increasingly being bought up by huge conglomerates. And the name of the game right now seems to be sports and talk. Sports and talk radio, yippee! So if you're not into those things, then there are other options. And that's going to be the ability to play whatever you want to play through the radio. Okay, so we have new power cord. Because the old one's crumbly. Put a little glue here. I know that doesn't look wonderful, but it's just added security. So now let's go ahead and plug it in. See if it still works. Which, if it doesn't, would be sure shame. Let's see if we got filament. Yep, filament is happening. So I expect this will make a noise, maybe. Maybe taking a sweet time to warm up.
That's what it's all about, getting even. Giving retribution and recompense when we've been wronged. But yet, we're called to be merciful.
These Caribbean as it takes in.
This is Sports Center.
I'm Nick DeLuca. Torn meniscus for J.J. Mc...
All right, well, it seems to still work. So the next thing I'm going to do electrically to this thing is add the audio input that I just aforementioned. And it's going to go to this volume control. And there's a top and bottom to it. The top is essentially this green wire, and that is the incoming radio signal from this transformer. That green wire goes whoop. So we're going to temporarily disconnect that by putting a switch wire that'll come out the back here. And then our audio is going to come in through where this green wire goes, and then this is a weird set. The other one's going to go underneath. Well, here's the other. There's like 3 legs coming off this pot. Green wire, middle, and the bottom. And that's where our audio is going to come in. And when I install it, I'll show you what that looks like, because this is hard to film. And so maybe it'll make more sense once I install that stuff. Okay, so I cut that wire so I can make sure that I'm killed temporarily the radio signal. Getting a little bit of buzzing coming from my fluorescent light here, but when you run your audio through that, you won't even notice it if you have a big fluorescent light like that. So that means we'll need to put a switch here, and then it'll come out of the back through this piece of fiber board. And then we're going to run the audio through an isolation transformer, and it's going to look like one of these guys. And there is 120 volts that comes in one side and 12 volts out the other. Rather, it's actually 110 volts and 12 volts out. Not that that's actually going to happen. That just gives you an idea of what the ratio is. Because this is just a wall wart, we just buy a whole bunch of them at a time, like 100 at a time from Alibaba. I think they're using welders. But anyway, we're going to run the audio from secondary, audio in from the secondary. These two little pins stuck together like that. Then these are the primary, and this is going to go to, I'm pointing the wrong way, to the volume control. So audio in this side, and then audio into the volume control this side. That way the person who's going to use this will be electrically isolated, because heaven forbid, we don't want people to get shocked while plugging in their iPhones or their Bluetooth receivers. Okay, here it is in a nutshell, and I know this is not the prettiest looking stuff I've ever done, but we have the isolation transformer installed, and then I drilled a hole through the back here and put a rubber grommet, and I'll secure that with a little more glue so you can't yank it out of the hole. See if I pull on it. Get stuck on that knot. I want to make sure it doesn't move around. And then we have the primary of the isolation transformer going one side to ground and the other side to the top of the volume control. That's really imperative. You don't want to do something like this unless you have an isolation transformer, because you don't want any of the potential juice to get from the audio input device to the user. So that's going to stop that from happening. Another thing that I've found out over the years is that if you want to prevent your transformer from messing up with your radio a little bit, put this little .02 rated cap and a 470K resistor together, and that'll preserve that. So now that that's kind of done, I'm going to zip it up and get to work on the cabinet. Alright, so we can see this in action. We have a little Bluetooth module connected, and it's going through this audio cable, through this hole, through all that system I just introduced, and this is what you get. Big shout out to WDVX out of East Tennessee. That's my home station. Even though I call it home, I haven't lived in Tennessee since 1997. But I'll always be a Tennessee boy at heart. I'm proud of it. And I know there's some things that aren't so great there, but you know what? There's not so great things about everywhere, including here in California. Anyway, I have this line run out for reconnecting the radio signal. I'll put a little switch. I give myself a little extra wire because it's a little easier to size. If you make it too short, then that's much more difficult. I'm going to clean this this volume control. And the way you do that is you want to use a little cleaner. You kind of get down into the pot, which is here. Just flood it. And that'll all right. Just a tiny bit of static over that. I'm sure it's not a big deal. What I found last night was that this coil was actually touching, or this shield was touching that wire. And that was causing some AC, well, not AC, but some radio interference into the signal. You'll get a little bit, and that's okay. Your music will usually override it. Before I do that, I'm going to put a little glue here, and then I want to make sure this thing fits in the case, because this is obviously a very tight fit. I think it will, because that's going all the way up to there, and that was that original electrolytic, which was huge, which went all the way over here. But I might as well go ahead and try to fit it anyway, because I've thought I've been okay at first, and then only to find that I really messed up. Alright, well it does fit in there, just barely. So now we can start doing some reassembly, final cleanup, and get this thing back on the road. Alright, well now it's time to start reassembly. I went ahead and installed the clock, and now I need to install the trim that I removed, and it's over here. And what I want to do is kind of bend these tabs really flat so they just go right in real easily, and then I can snug them up tightly. And then I think I'll take a little plastic polish to this because it's a little scratched up, and that trim looks pretty good. I'll just need to, again, flatten this up here. I could probably just stick it in the vise and squish it flat, like over here. And then it'll be time to put it all together. The other thing I did is, I know this looks like urine, but it's not, but I get a little warm water and some ammonia. This is lemon scented ammonia. This is why it's yellow, I guess. I put my plastic knobs in there, and that will eat all of the plastic oxidation, or whatever you call it, outgassing stuff. It's like this white looking haze that appears on the old plastic. You can get rid of it in doing that, and it's clean, and it doesn't really bother the plastic either. It's not caustic to it. Let's see, the only other thing I could think of, that's it. I just need to, again, come over here, straighten out these tabs, polish the plastic, and then do a final reassembly.
Nem que fechem os ministérios. No final, o bem vence o mal. Tudo vai dar pé, mano. Tudo vai dar pé.
You know what? Like, a lot of times when I paint radios, I'm kind of like not super satisfied with the result. But this one, even though it's very, I don't know, it's very, trying to think of the word, subtle. It's just a very subtle green color, but that green actually matches the green of the numbers. And so it looks really intentional, like it looks like way more factory that way. And plus, again, there's no runs, and it's very shiny. I think what I'm going to do is let it sit around for another 3 days, and then I'll buff it out some more. But I mean, it's pretty much done. So, and with that, that concludes this episode of Radiorama. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.